That just came on. Welcome again. It's good to have you back here. It's good for me. I hope it's good for you too. So that's easy to say. When I started teaching this class, I said there's 31 books, 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. And Chris Wilson asked me to do this, and when I did that, I thought, how am I going to cover 31 chapters in 8 weeks? Well, today, we're still in part of chapter 1, okay? So he had a different mindset than I did. It's certain thoughts that come out of Proverbs. Before we get started today, I want to back up to something that was said last week. At the end of class, I asked you all to tell me some people who in your life you viewed as being wise. And several of you told me some people in your life that you viewed as being wise. And this week I've been thinking about, Bill, you mentioned your grandmother was wise. But Bill said something that nobody else said. And I didn't ask for this. The only thing I asked for was, who do you look to that's wise in your life? Well, Bill said that his grandmother was wise. But then Bill said something else. Bill said, that's probably the reason that I'm here today, is because of my grandmother. And I thought about that. For some reason, I thought about that all week. When I was teaching class last Sunday, I was just thinking God wants us to be wise. And I was thinking about ourselves trying to be wise. And we need to try to do that. We need to study. We need to gain knowledge so we can hopefully be wise. But like I said, Bill went further and he said, that's why I'm here today, was because a wise person, because of my grandmother. And I hope someday my family not necessarily say, well, that's the only reason I come to church, it's because of my grandfather, but that it's made a difference in their lives. Hudson, my grandson, 10 years old, he and my granddaughter, Avery, come over about once every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they spend the night with us. Well, I sleep with Hudson in Josh's old bedroom, and Avery sleeps with Michelle. But every night, or every time he's over, before we go to sleep, he wants a Bible story. Now, he's 10 years old, and that tickles me to death. And so we're in bed, the lights are off, except for a little light so we can see the Bible. Lots of times it's on the phone. You can find a lot of video Bible stories. And so I hope, Bill, someday my grandson looks back, and he doesn't have to say the reason I'm in church, because they go to church all the time in Muskogee, but I hope he looks back and he remembers my grandfather was a believer. My grandfather was wise about the Bible, and that has made a difference in me. He doesn't have to say, like Bill said, that's the reason I'm here today, because of my grandmother. But I say that because I hope everybody here, and I realize most of us are older, but you have grandchildren. You may have great-grandchildren. So take advantage of that and show them things, because you are wise already for being here at this church. But like I said, I thought about Bill saying that and how important it is back in 2007 through 2014, I was the district attorney in Muskogee, and Bill and I would go to lunch sometimes once a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks or so, and we'd go to, I don't know if you remember, Western Sizzling, and that's where we would go, and we would talk about church things. And Bill, you don't know this, but you were mentoring me during those lunches. And he said a lot of things that I'll never forget, and it's made a difference in my life. But do you see how this works? I never met his grandmother. His grandmother was probably passed away a long time before I got old enough to really think about being serious about being a Christian. But today, there's a little bitty piece of me that has to do with Bill's grandmother, because Bill's grandmother made a difference in Bill's life because of her wisdom, and Bill's life has made a difference in my life because of Grandma's wisdom. So carry that with you. Remember to teach your children, to teach your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, because you may very well make a difference in somebody that you never will meet because you won't be here to meet them. But like I said, I thought about that all week, and it was, Bill, when did she pass away? The 70s, the 80s? 2000, okay. So it was more recent than I thought. But I never met her. Oklahoma City or more, Midwest City. Never met the woman, but somehow she's made a difference in my life. Okay, today, lesson 4, we'll be halfway through. Today is entitled Guarding Your Heart. You know, we guard a lot of things. I got a bunch of junk at my house that I think it's good junk. Joanne and I both, we've been to auctions, we've been to garage sales, we've been to estate sales, and we both bring things home. I don't do it anymore. I've licked that problem, and I'm not addicted anymore. But Joanne, she brings good stuff home to her house. I brought junk home to my house, but boy, I guard that stuff. You know what? I've got burglar alarms in my house. Right now, if somebody breaks in my house, supposedly that alarm goes to the police, and it goes to Rick Brown's info media, and it protects my stuff. So you could say that I am guarding my stuff. I pay a fee for that. I've taken action to guard my stuff. And I place importance on my stuff. And I just realized in the last 5 to 10 years, Jackie McFarland does it too. Jackie McFarland's real bad about getting stuff and bringing it home. But once again, he gets good stuff. He'll buy something for $10 and he'll sell it on eBay for $500. I know that for a fact, okay? I've never sold anything like that. I buy something and I lose money on it. And I've had, this is no joke, I've had garage sales before, and with a bunch of stuff that I've bought, and it still has the price tags on it from where I bought it. And I've literally done this. I'm ashamed to say I'll get it, and I'm going to put it out on the table, and I go, nobody's going to pay $5 for this. I paid $5 for it, but nobody else is going to, and I mark it down to $3. I've literally done that. So I guard my stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about guarding your heart. How often do you think about guarding your heart? We've got some different scriptures we're going to talk about. We talked last week about wisdom, and so we have a theme today. Wisdom begins from within. The condition of the heart shapes the actions of our life. Now, I'm going to say that again. The condition of our hearts shape the actions of our lives. I don't know if you've ever thought about it that way, but that's the wisdom that begins within. Butto and Sue were here, and they're gone right now. They left. But in 1977, May of 1977, I was a senior. I was 17 years old, and Butto spoke at our he spoke at that thing we go to before the graduation. And it's kind of like maybe some things Bill said. Bill, I don't remember everything you talked to me about, but I'm surprised you remember going to lunch with me. But anyway, I remember small things. I remember one thing, the whole speech that he gave us. I remember one thing that he said. He said, be careful what you set your heart on, because you will get it. And at the time, two things I thought. I thought, man, that's great, because I'm going to get what I want. The other thing I thought is that's not true. Be careful what you set your heart on, because you're going to get it. I thought, that's not, I've learned now in my 66 years, I've learned how true that is. I have chased things in my life. I've set my heart on things, and I've obtained them in the past. And once I get them, I see that I should not have set my heart on certain things. So today, as we talk about guarding our hearts, remember what Butto said, be careful what you set your heart on. The key verse for today, if you've got Proverbs, it is in chapter 4. Chapter 4, verse 23. Chapter 4, verse 23, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. There is an importance in protection of one's inner self. I was telling about protecting my junk a while ago. Well, your heart is important to be protected. All your actions, all your decisions stem from your heart. That's where they really come from. All your thoughts, all of your feelings comes from your heart. You talk about shaping things. I'm shaped because of how my parents were. The things that they taught me, their actions in life, what I got to see, how they lived their lives. I'm shaped by that. But our hearts is the source of our thoughts, our attitudes, our beliefs, and our actions. If you don't take the time to think about that, it really it's fleeting. We don't think that much about it. But everything we do is shaped by our hearts. It's very crucial to protect something like that. If you really thought about it, you would protect that over everything that you may have, materialistic things. We must be mindful of what we let inside the hearts that we have. We can let, I think about in these days and times, what the social media, the things that I have. I do have Facebook on my phone. I've only posted maybe one thing in my whole time I've had Facebook, but I read a lot, and there's a lot of history and a lot of things about music. So there are some things on Facebook and Instagram and things that are good, but I have to guard myself when I look at those things, because sometimes something else will be on there that's not healthy, that's not good, that's detrimental to my life. So if I don't guard myself, then I allow those things to enter into my being. I become a part of that. Like Bill's grandmother, that's made a difference in me, those things will make a difference in me. And you don't have to say, oh, I see that, I recognize that, I'm not going to let that bother me. Sometimes, a lot of times, the devil does things that we don't even realize that he's doing. He sneaks around, and what looks good is not good. He doesn't have to cut the tree down all of a sudden with one chop. He can take little chips out of that tree. And, it doesn't hurt anything, does it? But before you know it, what happens to the tree? It falls down. And I've had times in my life that I could see that tree falling. And once it starts falling, there's nothing. You can change your life, but once it starts falling, there's nothing you can do to keep that tree from falling over the decisions that you've made. You can start again, but you can't stop the tree from falling. So we have to really guard what we give our attention to. One way to do it is to focus on godly thoughts. What is it? Whatever it's pure, whatever is right, and it goes on. It says, think about these things. And I think sometimes maybe we don't do that. And if you don't think about what's good, then you're either thinking about nothing or you're thinking about something that's bad. So the devil, the devil will take you either way he can. He can get you when you don't have any commitment, when you're not thinking about something good, or he can get you when you're thinking about bad things. I remember years ago, I remember teaching a high school class, and that's just 30 years ago when Michelle and I were young married. I remember them telling them, you don't have to do anything bad. If the devil can get you busy doing things that are not bad, just busy, that you're doing secular things. You're doing things, you have a busy life, and you're not focusing on church. You're not focusing on God. If he can get you busy doing those things, he'll take you, won't he, Daryl? He'll take you just as you are if you're not thinking about him. And so we have to remember not just what we let into our hearts, but what we have in our hearts and what we give. Let's look at Jeremiah 17, verse 9. Jeremiah 17, verse 9. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? That verse kind of captures the essence of human nature. Our hearts sometimes are sick. I like this where it says desperately sick. God doesn't just tell us that we got some problems. He is telling us, you got some serious problems. You go to the doctor and you have heart trouble, and you ask the doctor, hey, how bad is it, doctor? Well, it's not bad, but you need to start taking some medicine. Your blood pressure's high, or you've got this. It's kind of your beat kind of changes a little bit, Or the doctor may say, hey, if you don't have open heart surgery, you got problems. You are desperately sick. Okay, that's what God tells us. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. You realize only God really understands the true nature of our thoughts. It's amazing, isn't it, that God knows you better than you know yourself. And God's trying to tell us here through Jeremiah the prophet, he's trying to tell us is, look, listen to me, because I know about you, and I want you to know that you don't have good hearts, just you by yourself. And I want you to take care of this. When we leave the heart unchecked, it can lead us into path away from God. You know, our second lesson, we talked about paths, and we talked about going down paths that lead away from God, going astray. Well, when we don't keep our hearts in check, we can get off very, very easy on that. You know, companies, sometimes they do it once a year. They evaluate. This last year, they evaluate the health of that company. Jerry, I know that at Georgia Pacific, I know you kind of involved in things like that. Does Georgia Pacific ever look at this past year? They look at the profits, they look at the losses, they look at what's gone on. Do they ever do that?
Not only do we do that, but those who we report to outside of here do that, as well as those who report to above them.
So you've got a lot of evaluations. And so do you ever evaluate where you are? You know, it's really easy, and I've been guilty of this too. It's real easy for me to evaluate Daryl Hamby. I can look at Daryl and I say, well, Daryl shouldn't do this. He shouldn't say this. And he needs to do this. I can evaluate Daryl real easy. But when I pass that mirror in my house and I look and it's me, do I evaluate myself? Do I do that check? Do I keep my heart in check? It's also got to be a continuous evaluation. What if Georgia Pacific said, okay, we had a good year last year, and it was really good. And so we're going to skip this year. You know, probably nothing's changed, and we're just not going to do evaluation. You know, Michelle was a teacher for 30 years. They do some evaluations sometimes on teachers to see if they're doing good. So we have evaluations in our secular lives on things that we may value, and they are important. It is important if the teacher is doing a good job. It is important if the company is healthy. Those things are important. But do we give that same value to our hearts? Do we do that? Do we take the time to say, I'm healthy? I go to the doctor, and I hate to say this, I'm 66, and I take medicine in the morning, I take medicine at 6 o'clock, and I take medicine when I go to bed. The doctor has evaluated me, and you know what? I do it religiously. Now, sometimes I forget, and Michelle, every day, Michelle will say, Larry, did you take, I forget my evening medicine the most. Larry, did you take your evening medicine? Because she wants to make sure that I have good health. And so the doctor has evaluated me, and he says, this is what you need. Okay, God evaluates us, and he's telling us, check your heart, make sure it's good. Do you align yourself I think about, well, I'm going to pick on you again, Jerry. In our elders' meetings, I've noticed this about Jerry. Jerry will throw an ideal out there or a statement, and Jerry will say, does everyone align with that? You know, and that's another way of saying, hey, does everybody agree on this? And when Jerry says that, to me, it makes me think, are we in agreement? Do we have a like mind? So I want you to think, do you align your heart with God? Because it's not, does God align with what I think, but do I align with what God thinks? And am I not letting our heart or my heart deceive me? You know, we have people deceive us all the time. Just like the example that Justin gave about scams and things like that. But I can deceive myself. And the devil likes nothing better than us deceiving ourselves. Okay, let's go to 1 Peter 5, chapter 8. I'm sorry, 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 through 9. Well, my pages are sticking together. Does anybody have that looked up? 1 Peter chapter 5, 8 through 9. Daryl, do you have that? Okay, read it loud.
Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him, firm in your faith, knowing that the kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world.
Okay. And there's different words. Mine says, yours says watchful. Mine says alert. And do we do that? Do we take time to be alert in the faith? Let me give you a little example, a personal example. I grew up in the country, grew up hunting. I had a creek, and I'm a kid down there. You know, I can't believe my dad let me do this, but he did it too when he was a kid. He grew up in the country. I'd go down to the creek, and I'm talking about 7, 8, 9 years old. We had water moccasins down there. We had cottonmouths. We had copperheads, and we had all these snakes. Now, I did things. I played. I looked for arrowheads in our creek. I did all kinds of things. But never one time did I, and I still do it today on my 15 acres, never one time did I go down there that I was not looking for snakes. I have this, I mean, I killed them all the time, and if it's kind of like Daryl. I can see Daryl there, so I know what he's going to do to him. Snakes, if I could see them, no problem. But I never knew if I was going to step on one, going through the weeds, going through the brush, being in the water. So I was watchful. I was alert every time, all the time. You know, and I stand here confessing to you, I'm not alert all the time as a Christian. I never got snake bit because I was alert, okay? And I watched where I was going. But sometimes I have failed miserably. I have failed God because I wasn't alert. I wasn't watching what went in my heart. And so this verse, 1 Peter 5, 8 through 9, tells us, be alert, clarity, have clarity on what's going on. So for us, be aware of spiritual danger. I was aware of those snakes because they were dangerous. Are we aware of what the devil can do to us? When this thing all started with Eve, she wasn't very aware, was she? She wasn't very alert. Now, how do we do that? It says, remain steadfast. if we are steadfast, that helps us against temptations. You got to have something to hold on to, and when you do, and we do have something to hold on to, but hang on to it. Don't let go of it. And then the verse 9, it reminds us, and this is so good. This is so good. If you're by yourself and you're struggling, boy, it's kind of hard, isn't it? If you're by yourself and you're struggling, you can just get down and it's over with, you know. And I've used this example before, and I don't want to embarrass him, but I'm probably going to. When I had my struggles, Steve Clankenberry come out to my house and he talked to me. And I was really struggling with something. And after Steve talked to me, when he left, I still had those struggles, okay? But guess what? I felt better. I felt like, you know what? I'm going to make it through this. Because I had somebody that helped me with my struggles that had experienced some things in his life. And so that helped me. So as Christians, we need to help each other. Like when I do the call to worship, I look out here and I see a family. And I see somebody or people with like minds. You know, I've had some struggles this week, and I'm sure you have too. But I see people that's part of me. I'm part of them. And it's like, you know what? I can go for another week. Because these people, they're struggling too, but we're together and we're helping each other. As elders, sometimes we're contacted by members that are struggling. And it may be in the faith, it may be secular struggles, but they come to us for help, for guidance, for wisdom. All kinds of reasons, and we help them as best as we can. So we are not alone in this. Sometimes if you're alone, days are hard. I remember my dad. My dad was 80 years old when he lost my mother. He lived to be 95. And so he lived 15 years after she passed away. And up to the last 4 years, my dad had his mind. He was very sharp. And I'd go up to see him. And of course, I knew he was lonely. But every once in a while, he never complained, but every once in a while he would say, "Oh, this house is really quiet." If you knew my mother, she was really loud. Bill knew her very well. She was very loud. But even if she wasn't loud, if she was typical spouse where normal, it would still be quiet. But he would say, you know, I'm lonely. You know, the house is just not the same. That's because he was alone. He didn't have somebody to help him every day share his life. To help care for his burdens. You know, he had sick days. He had days that somebody could have helped him. So we need to remember, and God tells us, let's be steadfast because we've got each other that can help us be steadfast. Okay, Ephesians 6:14. Somebody look that up. Ephesians 6:14. Okay, anybody got that? It's ready. Bill, do you have it? Could you read that out loud?
Stand firm, then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place.
That's it. It talks about the importance of truth. It's instructions, it's advice, it's direction, and it talks about if your heart deceives you, if it's untrue, what good is it Is it any good to your spiritual life if there's not truth in your heart? You know, we've all heard that saying, talking about somebody, said, man, there's no truth in him at all. Do you understand what that means? Somebody has examined us, somebody has evaluated us, and they said there's no truth in him. Well, this tells us the importance of truth, and he compares it to the belt of truth. Truth holds our lives together, being honest to yourself and to God. Sometimes it may be easier to be honest to God than it is ourselves. You've heard that phrase too, is you need to be honest to yourself. You need to realize what you're doing. You need to see, because it's so easy to make an excuse for your actions. So being honest to yourself. The breastplate of righteousness signifies a protective covering over our hearts. Protection from spiritual attacks helps us to face challenges. You know, I think about soldiers nowadays, and they're so much better equipped than they were in Vietnam and Korea and World War II. They have these, I call them flak jackets. I don't know what you really call them. That was the old term. But they have these plates that go in these vests. And sometimes these plates saves their lives when these bullets hit them. Okay, so they are protected. And they have to wear them. And the soldiers, or the ones that's come back, the vets that I've talked to, said you have no idea how hot they are, how heavy they are. I mean, there's nothing good about them except for one thing. Saves your life till you get hit. And so God's telling us here, I'm going to give you a protective covering, and it's going to be over your heart, and it's going to protect you from spiritual attacks, and it's going to help you face challenges. But you know what? We've got to let God help us. And if we don't, just like if the soldier doesn't wear that protection, then he can be very weak as far as protection and get shot. If we don't wear that breastplate of righteousness, then the devil can attack us, and he can shoot us, and we're down. So, okay, we're almost through. Any thoughts of this heart issue that I've talked about today? Any comments? Yes, Jerry. You know, that's excellent, Jerry. I have stored things up in my whole life. And I'll confess to this. The hardest thing for me to give you, and I'm working on it, the hardest thing for me to give you is my time. To me, it is so precious to me. If you say, Larry, I need $100. Well, if I have it, I'll give it to you. And I'll gladly give it to you. But that's easy for me. I don't have a problem with it. But my time is so important to me. My stuff. And Joanne and Jackie, are you listening to this? We don't store up things. And that's really why I quit. Because I got to looking at my stuff. And it's of no value. Either my kids are going to get it, or it's going to burn up with this world someday. And so I have gotten over that. I have gotten over my materialistic wants, and I don't mean money and gold and silver, but just my materialistic things, my little things. I've let it go. And Jerry used the word circumstances. We can store up circumstances that can affect our relationship with God. Thank you very much for your attention. We'll be on lesson 5 next week. Y'all have a good week.